All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to set the scene for us here for a quick second. And I know today we'll be talking about mentoring versus Orbit. You'll get kind of a structure of me talking about Orbit, Jake's going to talk about mentoring, and then from there we'll kind of offer you guys to share your feedback and how you've decided to set things up on your communities as well. So, setting the scene here, imagine you've got about 3,000 users in your community. And I imagine some of you may absolutely have 3,000 users in your communities. Maybe those users have varying aspirations. Some of them may be interested in some long-term career adjustments. Maybe they are looking for some best practice sharing. In that case, you have the perfect opportunity to get those users together in some kind of way. But the challenge is, without the community having a specific app or a specific place that they can go to or feature, it may be a little challenging for you to make sure that happens organically. So today we're going to talk about a few ways that Hivebrite has some AI-powered solutions, both mentoring and Orbit, that can address these challenges. So as we're going along, as Kat has mentioned, please feel free to comment and share some things in the chat if you have any questions, okay? So as a whole, we'll be doing a bit of an overlap between both of those features so you can decide which one works best for you, okay? So first things first, let's talk about Orbit. So to give you some context, in the Hivebrite community, if you're not already a part of that space, I have built the Hivebrite community Orbit matching rounds just about every month. So we host them once a month in the Hivebrite community. So as someone who has built those out pretty regularly, I know a lot about the feature itself. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about what Orbit is. So it's a very structured, admin-driven networking tool. Typically, we would use it for quarterly initiatives, events, and cross-cohort mixing, essentially. It also has some AI automation. So if you're interested in matching new users, it basically allows you to match them on a monthly basis in a very flash matching kind of session. Okay. And while I'm talking about that, Jake, I saw that you mentioned the matching rounds in the Hivebrite community. Can you post the Hivebrite community link in the chat just so everybody's got it?
Shout out. Let me pull one up.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know we'll be putting them on the calendar here pretty soon. So if there isn't one currently, just hold tight, but definitely join the Hivebrite community while you've got the chance. So, anywho, back to Orbit. The way that we use it at Hivebrite, essentially, if we are interested in bringing together clients on a best practice sharing kind of session, most of the times clients will come to me and say, I want to understand what everyone else is doing or what's the art of possible in using our platform, right? In that case, I will host a matching round where users can get to know one another. And what that essentially does, and we'll show you a little later on, is it will say Philippe um, is a user who's interested in this. He has this much experience in this kind of field. We're going to match him with Jake because Jake has similar experience level, similar industry interests, that kind of thing, and the like. Okay. So the best times that you should probably use this are when you have any kind of large scale connections that you're wanting to build. Orbit, we typically say we want you to build, as long as there is any more than 100 users in the community or 100 participants who can participate, that's the perfect number. So 100 plus users, that's when we use Orbit, right? From there, again, it is a place where you can do kind of speed networking or blitz mentoring, so to speak. So it's not something that will save your mentoring option. So if Jake and I matched originally, chances are if I go into a matching round again, I may be matched with someone else. I'm not going to match with Jake again. Okay, so we kind of think of it in terms of it being flash mentoring, so to speak. In addition to that, if you want to step back from any kind of manual matching, Orbit is great. It's going to allow you to automate a lot of those things. So Kat will share all the things that she's interested in, all the different facts about her, which you yourself as the community manager can customize. And then it will automate who those users are matched with. So very easy to work with. I set up our matching rounds within no more than 2 hours tops. So an hour once a month, it's totally easy, totally practical. So I'll go ahead and show you a few of the screenshots we have in terms of the product itself. And then I'll talk about some final tips and then we'll pass it to Jake. So in the back end of the site, when you are creating new engagements, you can often pre-populate them or you can build them from scratch. The template is going to allow you to kind of build in what are the themes you want to make for that orbit matching round. You can set up the scheduling of all the emails, that kind of thing. Here's what the backend typically tracks. So it's going to track for you the number of rounds, the opt-ins, your opt-in rate, the NPS scoring. So each round has an NPS score based on what your users share. So users at the end of their matching round have the ability to do a feedback form to the platform. And then from there, it will give them the option to set an NPS score as well. So there are a few other engagement metrics that are pretty helpful too. So if you've got unique members, meaning folks who are coming in for the first time to match, that can be helpful to you as well. And in addition to that, it's going to show you who did not show. So you have the ability to see what your no-shows are and see the feedback rate, meaning how many users maybe matched and then took the feedback survey at the end as well. I'm going to stop and take a look at our chat. I noticed Kat has offered some general orbit information there as well. So if you want a nice beach read, that is a perfect link to check out as well. So this is what it's going to look like on the back end. So when you go into the back end of the site, there is a general dashboard. That general dashboard is going to show you a few things. It will show you the audience members that you have populated or imported into the platform. It will show you the engagements, which are the matching rounds you've created. And then there's also some resources there on the back end. This screenshot in particular is showing you a bit of the analytics. So again, some of those analytics I shared with you are available here, and it gives you a bit of a helpful kind of organization and structure to everything. Okay. Once you get into the feedback section, so let's say you've matched all of your users and they've done an event together. At the end of that event, it will allow them to give feedback. Like I mentioned, that feedback is showcased here in the feedback tab. So once the user is matched, in this case, Christian matched with a user, that partner or that person is able to share feedback in what they've experienced with that partner and share their ratings of that as well. There's one tiny bit to this as well that's pretty useful, which is the opt-in form. So you guys will create what is called the opt-in form, which is going to take in all of the feedback or all of the matching criteria for your users. So this may be going a little fast. I'll try to pause one and see if you can see it. So let's see if that will pause for you. It may not, but in the case that it doesn't, it would basically show you. Let's see if I can share. I'll go back. So it'll just do a rotation of this, and that's okay. The opt-in form is what you create in order to set criteria for the users to get to know one another. So this can be topics the users are interested in, the times that the users are available, what location they're based in. In the case that maybe you want to match users by location, then they can meet one another in person, offline. You set all of those things in the opt-in form. Once we get to the time that we're ready to do the matching rounds, this opt-in form will be sent to all the users. So Jake will receive the opt-in form. He can click through, share what all the things are that he's interested in, where he's based, his years of experience. And then that opt-in form period will last for about 3 to 5 days, so to speak. Once that 3 to 5 day kind of passes, then the users will be matched, and then they will be provided with an immediate 1 hour calendar alert that will essentially put some time on their calendar and match them with the user. Once they are able to get to that scheduling link, they'll click into that link, and on the day of, they'll have 1 hour to meet with that user to talk about anything that they would like. In the case that you want this to be an informal session, it can be anything they like, or you can actually structure this. So, in some cases, or especially in the Hivebrite community case, we provide users with a set number of questions that they can discuss at any point. So, we've given them a structure, and sometimes the questions are, what features are you using? Or what are you most excited to learn about in the Hivebrite platform? Or what are some basic questions you have about being a community manager? So those users can discuss them as they need to. Okay. I'll go into the chat and answer a few questions. I see it's pretty busy. So, question here from Melanie. Is this included in our Hivebrite package or is it an additional charge? Melanie, it is not traditionally included in your Hivebrite package. It is an add-on. So if it is something that you're interested in, you can talk with your onboarding specialist, a CSM, or your sales rep, and they can add that for you as needed. And then I see what
Actually, me,
other questions
Melanie.
here. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
I was gonna say that's actually me. So hello, Melanie. Thanks for
Uh,
joining.
okay. Yeah. So check in with Jake. I'm sure that he can add that for you as well. Jillian asks, if a member doesn't join a session, what happens? That's a really important question. So, in the case that a user does not attend their session, most of the times that's a kind of community moderator's chance to step in, and either you can restrict that user from feature or future sessions, or you can just have a chat with that user and say, hey, we recommend that you attend these sessions because obviously, if Jake attends a session and I'm not there to match with him, I'm sure that may impact Jake's desire to attend sessions again, or he may feel like that's wasted his time. So, in that case, it's more something that you would moderate. I will say, on the side of if, let's say, a user does not get matched with someone, let's say in the beginning where everything is set up, there are 21 users who can match. Obviously, there's one person who may be left out. If that user is left out, what I typically do as the community manager or the person who's managing the matching round is I will email that user and let them know that there either are not enough folks who can match with them, or I will try to match them in or provide them with a link where they can match with a group of three instead of a group of two, or instead of them not being able to match at all, essentially. Okay. All right. So I'll keep going on. Some basic pro tips about Orbit, some final thoughts here. Um, you do have the ability to capture NPS. So if that's something that's important to you or you want stakeholders to have that information, it's a great platform to use. In addition to that, if you want to host regular rounds and get multiple users to get to know each other versus a one-to-one match every single time, Orbit is a perfect way to do that. So speed networking, speed mentoring, this is a perfect opportunity to do that. Um, in addition to that, a final thought, Orbit is really cool in that, let's say um, you want all users who like the color blue to match to one another. And then users who hate the color blue, you want them to match with users who hate the color blue. Orbit allows you to do that. So you have the ability to set likes to likes, but you also have the ability to set likes to unlikes. So if you want there to be users who meet around a certain topic, you frame them together. But if you want there to be likes to unlikes, the most traditional way I see this done is if there is an older member and a younger member and you want them to match on like a mentoring perspective. So likes to unlikes is also possible using Orbit. All right, and that's it. Those are the reasons and the things that I love about Orbit. I'm going to pass it over to Jake. Jake, you want to talk about mentoring?
I'd love to. Thanks for teeing me up, Megan. And I
Awesome.
do see we have a couple people who joined late. So just to kind of set the stage, Megan was talking about how Orbit is really phenomenal for flash mentoring, speed networking, and the like. I think I always gravitate towards those flash, speed. It's really easy to set and forget. I would say typically Orbit is probably what, maybe a 30-minute admin commit per month to make sure that you've got these ready to go, but it's pretty hands off. When we're talking about mentoring, though, I think there is another use case where we're talking about more formal, long-term relationships for career development, knowledge transfer, or any other number of potential outcomes. But really, those cases call for something a little more structured, a little bit more hands-on. And typically, we find that community administrators like to manage these with a little bit more oversight. So in cases like this, I would actually personally probably gravitate away from an Orbiit and really move into Hivebrite's dedicated mentoring solution. This gives you more options to customize your application forms, what approvals look like, and even track relationships down to the mentor and mentee. So I think, Kat, we had a little slideshow just to show what exactly mentoring looks like here. And this is a great starting point. So if you wanted to become a mentee, this is one of those customizable forms that you would be able to put together. In some senses, kind of similar to customizing a form on Orbit, but in this case, you're specifically customizing a mentee form. On Orbit, you're creating a single questionnaire where anybody can go in, say, yes, I like the color blue. No, I don't. You can match like to unlike. There's a lot more room for nuance and creating more tailored experiences based on whether someone's applying to be a mentor or a mentee. So if we can go to the next slide here. So this shows you from a back office perspective exactly what an admin would see when you are managing your mentoring program. In the left column, you can see all of your approved mentors. On the right column, you can see all of the mentees who have been put into the program. And we've actually already expanded this. I know the text is kind of tiny, but you can see just by clicking that see more little blue. Yeah, there we go. Thanks for the
Oh,
tactical zoom. Oh,
yeah, let me see if I can get you back.
so
Let's
if you
see.
click that see more button, it gives you quick insight to say, okay, great. I can see exactly how they responded to the mentor or the mentee form. And this lets me make more informed decisions about maybe who I want to pair people with. And that's probably an important little detour to note that Hivebrite supports two different mentoring types. We have more of a user-led mentoring, and then we have admin matched mentoring. So if you want things to be a little more headless, if you have, full confidence that your community knows what they're trying to do, they have a clear picture of who they want to meet with, and you just want to let them kind of go off and running, you can approve those mentors and then let them kind of manage their own mentee cohort, approving or denying people based on their own preferences. On the flip side, you can use this dashboard in an admin matched model to basically say, okay, yeah, I see Lorena. I know her. She would be a perfect match for Jasmine in terms of a mentor mentee connect. And then you can manage those on a more granular basis. And if we click into the next slide, so you'll see exactly, oops, you'll see what that looks like in terms of managing mentor-mentee relationships, where right now Jasmine has four mentees falling under her, and you can always mix and match as needed. Though I will say, generally speaking, I wouldn't advise necessarily being too hands-on after these connections are made. Typically, you want to let those relationships have some time to percolate, to flourish, and kind of see where it goes. Again, I would say that our mentoring programs that we're looking at here are much more suited to more long-form relationships. So cases where you are envisioning something maybe a little bit more time bracketed. I always suggest if you are launching a mentoring program, make sure that people know what they're getting into, whether it's, hey, this is a 3-month engagement. So whether you're a mentor or a mentee, be ready for that. Make sure that you're going to be available. Or maybe it's longer, maybe it's shorter, but make sure that that's transparent from the get-go. Anyway, if we want to click to the next slide here. So you can see some more of your admin tools here, where if you do have a pretty robust mentor or mentee cohort, it might be a little bit more rigorous than just, okay, I've got two mentors, I've got 10 mentees, five to each, easy. So in cases like this where you do need to get a little bit more granular in terms of, oh boy, it's maybe both these people like the color blue, to go back to your example, Megan, but I want to see who's interested in teal versus cyan. These filtering options could give you maybe a little more granularity to make sure that you're finding the right mentors to pair with the right mentees and really have a full 360-degree view of all the people who have registered for this mentoring program. So if we click over to the next slide. And then in here, you can see a couple more of the tools available at your disposal as a program manager. So for instance, you're able to tailor all of the communications. At the top, you can see it's not just a single set of communications like you might see in Orbit, for instance. Hey, thanks for registering. Thanks for matching. We hope you had a great time. Awesome. In this case, you can get a little more tailored where whether someone's applying to be a mentor, a mentee, or you're specifically speaking to that matching process, you're really kind of tailoring every step along the way to give people the information they need. Or maybe it's not just a matter of, great, here's your meeting link. We're excited for you to have this chat, but more a matter of, hey, you're in week one of a 10-week mentoring program. Here's some content to get you going. Here's what you need to keep in mind. And hey, here's your engagement space, which is something I'll talk about a little bit more in just a moment here. But just want to quickly touch on the communication tools that you have available. This is all automated once you set it up, but you can get very in the weeds in terms of what communications you want to put out there and how you really want this user experience to flow. If we can go over to the next slide, please. And so this, I would say, is kind of when I'm speaking to workspaces. It's not something that we're necessarily forcing anyone into, but my suggestion would be is if you put all of the work into creating a tailored, time bracketed, and curriculum-based mentoring program, I wouldn't leave it to the mentors and mentees to choose how they want to progress through that. My personal suggestion is using your Hivebrite front office to make sure that you're providing people with a space where they can interact, collaborate, and progress through their mentoring program in a space that's dedicated to them. So this is a great example of how you might set up a mentoring page in your front office. Beyond that, I would totally suggest leveraging our groups functionality. If you want to say, hey, Kat's mentoring Jake and Megan, so let's give Kat her own Hivebrite group that she can operate in over the next 4 months, run through her curriculum, store all of the content in the media center, have a forum or a live feed going to continue conversations that maybe we didn't have time to tackle during an in-person, and even set up events. So, I mean, there is a lot that you could do through the group's application, but all of that would be supported by the mentoring program itself. So, a really cool synergy within the Hivebrite front office that really lets you tailor one of these programs to your community's needs. So if we click to the next slide, I think this might be the last slide. Oh, we've got one more. So just in here, you can see from a front office perspective what signing up for a mentoring program might look like. So if I'm looking at the summer network program and I say, yes, Jasmine is who I want to be a mentor or a mentee to, I can click that submit an application button. I can progress through that whole user flow. And hopefully Jasmine thinks enough of me to approve me as a mentee. But that is entirely in her ballpark unless it's an admin match program. So we can cruise right through here.
All right.
And this was all just kind of a high level overview of really from a back office, front office perspective, what the mentoring program is all about. But at this point, you might be wondering, like, okay, so we've talked about Orbit, we've talked about mentoring. How does this all kind of fit together? What's the big picture? And I've already kind of touched on it, but I guess to make it crystal clear, I would say that really our mentoring program, whether admin matched or user matched, is really strongest when we're talking about formal development programs. Again, time bracketed, doesn't need to be particularly long form, but I would say, at least a couple of months typically, you want to have that more curated experience where you can manage these relationships on an ongoing basis. Typically, that looks like if we are running a knowledge transfer program, for instance, where maybe you have some folks who are aging out of their current roles. You need to make sure that incoming employees have all of the tools and tricks that they need to step in and be effective from day one. Managing a mentoring program between those more senior members of your team and the more junior members can be a really great one where it's, maybe Ment or Orbit doesn't make a ton of sense there, where it's great. You've got 30 years of experience. I have 3 weeks. It's going to take more than a 30-minute meeting to make sure that we have the back and forth we need to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. But a mentoring program, perfect. It's also great when you're working with smaller, more curated cohorts, where I would say Orbit's real strength is probably going to be more in generating well, working with economies of scale, right? I would say that AI can really start churning when you can put a lot of people into the system, whereas this is probably a little more nuanced. Maybe you even know some of the people who are applying to be a mentor or a mentee, and you want to have that kind of well, that input as far as who might be the best possible match for well, any number of your community members. And overall, I would say really, I would gravitate to the mentoring program when we're talking about needing additional admin oversight and even more of a curriculum. Speed
Mhm.
networking is great. Those conversations can go a lot of different directions. But if you're putting people together in, a 6 to 12 month mentoring program, you've probably got an idea of what you want them to be talking about over month one, month two, month three, so on and so forth. So being able to provide that curriculum, check in on your mentor-mentee pairings, and make sure that you're applying a bit of a guiding hand to those relationships is a really powerful part of the mentoring program. Um, Oh, one other thing I should mention about some synergies within the Hivebrite ecosystem and mentoring. Journeys is a really cool module if you haven't toyed with it before. It's
Mhm.
basically a lightweight learning management system. I see Megan nodding. It's one that we've been having a lot of fun with lately. I know we've got a bunch of great examples in the Hivebrite community. So tinker around with them. I think it's a great way to support your mentors if you are trying to give them cohesive content that they can give to their mentees, regardless of who the mentor is, how much bandwidth they have to put trainings together. You can make sure that that portion of the mentoring program is standardized, regardless of who the mentor is. And on top of that, I would definitely encourage getting into the badging portion of Hivebrite. There's a lot of cool ways to gamify things like participation in mentoring programs and reward people who either put their time forward to be a mentor or who really excel as mentees. Give them a little badge on their profile, show them that you see them, and maybe even drum up some conversation in the community when people say, "Hey, that's a cool badge. How did you get that?" You can get some new applicants for your next round of mentoring. So I won't go too much farther into the weeds there, but Megan, I would love to have a friendly debate with you if you're open to it, as far as maybe the virtues of Orbit versus mentoring, if you're up for it.
Absolutely. They're kind of like siblings, kind of like cousins. I think it'd be good to do a debate and share kind of some differences in a real use case.
I love it. Well, how about we put ourselves into a bit of a scenario here? I'm a community manager. I'm running a professional leadership community with members all across various industries and career stages. My goal is to accelerate career advancement for, say, mid-level professionals, maybe 5 to 10 years into their careers, who aspire to reach those more senior leadership roles. So, what do you think? I mean, it's obviously a broad use case, but should I go with mentoring? Should I go with Orbit? Curious to see what the community thinks.
Yeah, let's let you guys decide first. So, would you use mentoring or Orbit for a professional leadership community with folks in different industries and different career stages? Go ahead and do the poll and let us know what you think. All right, I'm seeing
Yeah, we've got some competition.
some competition going here. Keep voting, everyone. This goes into our end of year review. So if I win, I get a bonus and Jake does not. So just kidding. That's not happening at all. Looking good. Thank you guys for participating. This is awesome. Any final votes in there? We're kind of neck and neck here. Okay, we've got half and half. Some folks who are Orbit, some folks who are mentoring. Which would you use? What platform do you think you would use, or what feature would you use to match a professional community of users? I love that this is half and half. Oh,
I
I
mean,
see Team Jake.
I've got a couple of yeah, insiders in the chat room. Um,
Yeah, I see.
Honestly, I'm a little split on this myself. I
Yeah.
think with probably a bit more context as far as really the outcome, it's probably a little bit easier to speak to, on a binary scale, like, do I go mentoring or do I go orbit? In this case, I feel like there's a lot of gray area where maybe even a blended approach could be a cool way of handling this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if I had to speak from the Orbit side of things, certainly I would use Orbit on a generic scale. If there were, 100 users plus or 3,000 users in this community, certainly Orbit then is probably where I would think to go. But some specific reasons I would use Orbit are, let's say the professional organization is having an upcoming conference, and I want to get users to either get to know each other before the conference begins. I then match them. I see a lot of our clients using Orbit as a kind of pre-conference, really fun place to generate excitement before the conference begins. And then if Kat and I match before the conference, we can then meet in person at the event. So imagine there's some pretty cool engagement you could happen or you could see happening in your community even before the conference begins. So it's a perfect reason to use it. Um, in addition to that, I probably consider it as a post-conference experience too. So, as a person who kind of experiences, I think it's like conference fatigue, but for me, it's like the conference high. You get really excited, you got a lot of good ideas, and then you just want a place to talk to someone about it because you can only talk to your dog about so many things for so long. So, I would match with someone using Orbit after the event. Maybe there's a big conference that we have at the end of the year, and after the event, I go and match with Sarah, and talk about what we experienced, what she saw, what I saw. It's a perfect opportunity to do that. So that's how I would use it. Jake, how do you see mentoring being applied to this use case?
Well, it's funny because I'm seeing our poll seems to be stalled out at 50. And I was going to make my case specifically for why mentoring is the best and, forget about Orbit. But I think, I'm kind of looking at this in the same way where I think there is a blended approach here. What I would probably consider doing, you've got this large leadership community where that, there's a lot of different personalities probably. And frankly, I think launching a mentoring community, while it could make a ton of sense, I would also probably want to do some legwork beforehand to make sure that
Mm,
you're creating the right pairs and make sure that there really is genuine interest in something a little more long form. What I would probably suggest is we start with a flash mentoring program. You let people put in some general context around here's what I'm interested in, here's my career experience, this is what I'm trying to gain out of, maybe a 30-minute conversation, and let them organically pair those more senior members of your community with the more junior folks. From there, I would probably follow up with an email to all the folks who participated, or at least who gave you a solid NPS score. Hey, we saw you had a great time meeting with so and so. Would you have any interest in continuing this relationship in a more structured format? We'd love to start piloting a mentoring program. You tell us, is this something you would want to continue with? Would you want to stay with the same mentor, or would you maybe want to keep shopping around? I think when you
mm,
are talking about maybe launching a year-long mentoring program and having someone dive in with a mentor they've never met before, that's a real leap of faith. So giving people the option to kind of speed date their mentors almost and shop around is a really, really great way to make sure that people do have a little bit of context before they make this long-term commitment. I think the last thing you want to see going into a structured mentoring program is having 12 months of curriculum planned and seeing that the majority of your mentors or mentees are kind of falling off around month 1 or 2. So making
mhm,
sure that there is that pre-commitment, that people are on board, and giving them all the context they need to make a great choice about who do I want my mentor to be, or do I feel comfortable mentoring these people? I think that's a really great opportunity for kind of getting the best of both worlds and letting both of these platforms shine in their own ways. Um, which I know is a total cop out because this was supposed to be a big debate, Megan, but I'm going to take the
yeah,
easy way out and say I would use both in this case. I think
mhm.
there definitely is room for that.
Yeah. I was also thinking maybe with Orbit's a good time to match folks based on like a niche. So let's say even in this professionals organization, Mentoring will allow them to match. I guess you could set some niches there too. But if you wanted to set an instant, I want all the professionals that are parents, or all the professionals that are right out of graduation, undergrad, or all the professionals that are a certain belief or like religious group. That's a perfect opportunity to use Orbit and really kind of dice people and give them specialized uh, flash. Again, it's flash matching services, but it's certainly a way that you can easily kind of, in one of our communities, there are different types of surgeons. So maybe I would want to match them based on their industry in the next week, right? Orbit can do that certainly. And I think mentoring is going to be the more long scale where if we want those same specialties of people, I won't speak too much to your your feature here, but it would be more long term and something that you're really having some hands-on moderation over.
And I think you had a great point as well around using Orbit around in-person events. I worked with a
Hmm.
number of, for instance, developer communities where absolutely essential for developers to be able to share technical specs and details and answer questions, but those in-person events, frankly, sorry if any developers are on the call, can sometimes look like a middle school dance. They're a little bit awkward maybe. So giving people that option to kind of make a buddy before you go to the event, find someone to link up with at the hotel bar just so you don't feel totally alone. It's a great way to have some pre-event icebreakers to make sure that when your people do show up, that they're ready to go, they're excited, and there's not that air of awkwardness that sometimes day one at an event you can occasionally see.
Yeah. Jake, I know I've talked a little bit about Orbit's analytics on the back end, like measuring NPS scores, no-shows, feedback, all that. What does mentoring analytics look like, or what's able to be tracked?
Well, you can absolutely track what's the word I'm looking for? Your connections. And I would say that's the biggest piece, right? Is being
Yeah.
able to understand exactly how your mentees and mentors are structured, where you're not overloading one particular mentee, or you're not necessarily maybe leaving one mentor kind of in the corner, but you're distributing all of that workload around. On top of that, I would say really the engagement itself, it's kind of headless, right? Hivebrite mentoring is very much designed from a relationship management perspective, giving you that high level overview of all of the relationships that are happening in your community. But what those look like, they could turn into phone calls. They could take place on the Hivebrite Groups platform. People could have their own Zoom events. So there's a lot of different ways that folks might engage kind of beyond the community itself while still in the scope of your mentoring program. I really think the best way to track efficacy when we're talking about these more fleshed out mentoring programs is really kind of well, having a hand in them. I definitely suggest if we do have, say, a 6 to 12 month mentoring program, have touch points, have gates within those programs where you're going into those groups, you're surveying those members, and you're getting an understanding of, is this working for you or not? Do we need to iterate? How are things moving? Is it a comfortable pace for you? And you can definitely leverage Hivebright's surveying tool as well to make sure that you're getting all of that in a structured manner. Or just as well, you can pop into those groups and we have full group level analytics, whether you want to see how many times a piece of media has been downloaded or viewed, how much conversation is happening within those forums that you've set up around different conversations. So we have a pretty robust analytics suite when it comes to all different types of engagement. I would say really it comes down to how you're structuring these mentoring programs and how you specifically want your mentors and mentees to engage, and then tracking based on that.
Yeah. Good. Alex is in the chat and asked, are surveys included? So I'll ask that for Alex, but also ask, I know you mentioned at the start of the call some of the other features you'd use in connection to mentoring. What are some features that you see if you're going to use mentoring, be prepared that you should probably use this too? I heard you say groups, but are there any others as well?
But the group just kind of provides the space, right? A
Yeah.
group is in a lot of ways a little Hivebrite within Hivebrite, where if you do want to provide these mentor cohorts with their own little spaces to work within, I definitely
Mhm.
recommend using that as the jumping off point. But then, yeah, I would definitely say, and I think I've touched on these before, but journeys, if you want to have more structured learning paths, if you're positioning things in a way where it's, hey, every week you meet with your mentor on a Friday, between those meetings, progress through a journey, make sure you have a clear
Mhm.
understanding, kind of do the homework, and then come back and have a discussion with your mentor about some of these findings. So I think journey's a really cool way to make that learning engaging instead of more of a chore. I think Media Center is an awesome way to provide your community of mentees with all the resources they might need to independently research and dive farther into that curriculum. And then I would even say events, depending on how large these mentee cohorts are and exactly how many meetings this mentor chooses to have. Leveraging our events module can be a really nice way to make sure that you've organized these meetings and they're clearly
Mhm.
presented to your mentee cohort. And people can very easily find out when the next one is, how to register, and how to make sure that they're not falling behind in the curriculum. On top of
Awesome.
that, I mean, forums, if in case you want to have continual conversations around different content pieces. Live feed, if you're providing maybe more timely updates around, hey, we need to move the Friday meeting back by a day,
Mhm.
or any sort of kind of more timely alerts that maybe don't warrant a forum. Um, but really, I mean, the entire Hivebrite suite is pretty much available to leverage within the scope of a mentoring program. I think depending on what specifically you're trying to gain from the mentoring program, I wouldn't want to pigeonhole us. I think there are opportunities to leverage media center events, um, you name it. I just saw we're running up on time, so I'll stop rambling on about different modules. But I think there's a
Well,
lot.
thanks, Jake. Just to make sure, to Alex's point, will surveys be included with that, or is it just that's a separate feature that you could use through Hivebrite?
It's a great question. Surveys are kind of one of those funny little pieces of Hivebrite that we don't actively promote,
Mhm.
but it is included with your plan. All it takes is a conversation with your CSM to get that activated. There are some cool bells and whistles there. If you do want to create something maybe a little bit more custom branded, you can absolutely embed HTML code in there. If you do maybe work with any Canva designers, it's a great way to quickly make some really pretty looking surveys and blast them out to well, whoever in your community you want to talk to. But long story short, yes, we can absolutely activate surveys for you.
Awesome. Well, we're at the end of our time. I want to thank you guys so much for joining us. I know this was a friendly debate, but I hope it certainly gave you a few more ideas of how you could apply both use cases to your communities. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us through the Hivebrite branded site. We're more than happy to answer your questions or see if we can help you in any way. Um, that's about all we've got. Jake, anything else?
Nothing on my end. No, it was a pleasurable debate, Megan. It was awesome chatting with you. Didn't get too heated, I hope. Um, no, and thanks everyone for joining today. Hopefully this was valuable for you all, and it was great to see some familiar names and faces on the call.